The Trump family is among the world's most powerful families, with its most famous member currently serving as US president. He is the most wealthy president in American history by several billions. But while a lot is known about him, most know little about the Trump family and its history. Like every prominent family, it was not always rich and influential, but unlike others, we are now seeing it transform into a political dynasty, earning the Trumps a new level of status. In this video, we look at how the Trumps built their empire, from humble beginnings to billion-dollar deals and presidential power. The exact origin of the Trump name is unknown. Some think it's a version of Drumpf, which is derived from drum. Perhaps the Trump family once earned their living as drummers. Either way, it's a German name, with the village of Karlstadt being their ancestral home. By coincidence, it's also the ancestral home of the Heinz family. Frederick Trump was born in Karlstadt in 1869. He was one of 6 children to the owners of a grape farm, but when he died young, the children inherited massive debt, forcing them all to work in the fields. All but Frederick. He was too young and sickly for hard labor, but found work as a barber's apprentice. In those days, it was hard for a barber to earn a living in rural Germany, and Frederick was an ambitious lad. So at age 16, he went to America, running away one dark night and leaving a note. One long boat ride later, and he was in New York City. At this time, the city had a constant flow of immigrants who would often settle in the slums. The most notorious slum in New York was 5 Points, a place known for violent crime and disease. It was said that even street cats here looked like murderers, and police were scared to enter it. Luckily for Frederick Trump, he did not need to live here. He stayed with relatives who had previously moved to New York. Also by stroke of luck, he encountered a barber who could speak German. The next day, he started 6 years of work for that barber. Being an employee was not enough to satisfy Trump, and after the 6 years, he moved to Seattle, where he basically became a pimp. It was 1891, and Seattle had grown rapidly since a fire had destroyed half the city 2 years before. Countless wooden houses were reduced to piles of ash, but they were rebuilt with stone. This attracted new residents to the city, and it became clear to some that Seattle would be an important place. Frederick recognized this and came here to open a restaurant with money he saved while in New York. His restaurant was on a street known for decadence, a good location as he sold not only food but sex. In fact, his restaurant was apparently known for housing some of Seattle's best prostitutes. You might think that's a joke, but it's not even. 3 years in, he sold the business and bought land outside the city, hoping to find gold. He never found much, and it looked as if he had thrown away what money he had pimped so hard for. But not long after, a new gold rush hit Washington. Prospectors were aching to buy land, causing prices to soar wildly. Frederick sold his land for a healthy profit. Trump then moved to a remote Canadian town called Bennett. Bennett was on a popular gold rush route taken by prospectors. He knew that establishing a hotel on the route would guarantee him constant business. This new hotel was also said to contain an unsurprisingly popular brothel, and its restaurant served a surprisingly popular dish of frozen horse meat. When Frederick Trump died in 1918, he was worth $500,000 in today's money. At the time, his wife Elizabeth was just 37 and she had 3 children to look after, so she invested her inheritance in real estate, having houses built on land Frederick owned and selling each home individually. She realized this would be a good way of making continuous income and set up a company called Elizabeth Trump and Son. She continued to build homes to be sold or rented out on behalf of her children. When her eldest son Fred was in his early 20s, he took over the business. In the coming decades, he built countless homes, specializing in low-income apartments. He was a cautious developer, only building in areas he was familiar with and largely stuck to realistic projects. Fred Trump mostly built in New York City. As America's largest city and financial core, the value of poorer areas grew. The low-income apartments he built often became much more valuable. And as he built more than 2,500 apartments, it's no surprise he became super rich. On his death in 1999, he was worth hundreds of millions of dollars. Many decades before this, he and his wife had 5 children. Among them was Donald Trump. His lesser-known siblings are Marianne, Elizabeth, Frederick, and Robert. I don't really want to say anything about them just because they are fairly boring. Fred taught young Donald all about real estate, or at least low-end real estate, but Donald saw things differently. He had a talent for branding and wanted the Trump name associated with luxury rather than low-end apartment blocks. Where his father was not, he was dead set on building large properties in Manhattan. His father gave him $1 million and powerful connections which he used to buy old hotels and skyscrapers on the cheap. Renovating the physical buildings and waiting for Manhattan lands to rise in value, he would later sell most for huge profits. He changed the company name from Elizabeth Trump & Son to the Trump Organization, simply to sound more prestigious. Slowly he made a name for himself which gave him access to better deals, and he became an icon of Manhattan's rise to being a home to the wealthy. There were times when he only narrowly avoided losing everything, but somehow the Trump name still came to be associated with high-end property. We all know what happens next, but the Trump empire might just be getting started as the family becomes a possible political dynasty. Who knows if any other Trump family members will move into politics in future, but with Donald Trump being the most wealthy president in US history, I can't see the family struggling for influence anytime soon.